want to take a look at humor. What is humorous in person? Okay? Versus that of dramatic. One of the mistakes, and in talking to some of you yesterday, we go into these rounds and we go to these tournaments and we see people do these DIs, and they're just traumatic from the moment it starts. I knew that the day was going to be bad the moment I opened my eyes. And it's like, okay, where can that DI go from that point? Okay? The only thing that can happen is they die. Okay, at some point, about the 2-minute mark, you're like, please die. Now. Because at least I can get a cupcake in the judge's lounge. Okay? And I'm just being honest. Like, I've decided at one tournament before I retire, I'm going to treat it like an audition. Just your best 2 minutes. That's all I need. Just 2 minutes. That's all I need. You know, I'm going to probably get kicked out of the tournament. I don't care. But what happens is that we then take humorous and we think that it has become this almost inappropriate behavior, and we're trying to get our colleagues, or your colleagues, to laugh. Oh, I want to make so-and-so from this school, I'm going to top their joke from last week. And people are starting to put in jokes that are not in the scripts. We're taking author's intent and we're blowing it completely out of the water, all because we're trying to be funny. Okay? And when we talked the other day, funny and humor in itself are not the same thing. I, being 48 years old, find things completely differently humorous than you do. Okay? And so today, just briefly, we're going to take a look and just go and just kind of look at what is comedy. Because I think that's what's happening, is that we're not teaching children what comedy in and of itself is. We tell you to look at television or to look at movies, and you derive what comedy is or humor is from those things. Okay? Reason there's a 3 on the board. Okay? True comedy comes in 3s. Please write this down. True comedy comes in 3s. The first time that we hear something humorous or comedic in a piece, it's called the plant. It plants that seed in our minds about what's to come. Okay? And it's just like literally seeding your lawn. I know people hate to do it. I especially hate to do it. It's drives me crazy. You know, you spend all this money, you put seed down, your lawn looks really crazy, there's no grass, you think, okay, I trust that in 6 months I'll have beautiful grass. And it's one of those things you just kind of hope it works. Okay? The second time that we hear that same joke or that innuendo that refers back to the previous, the plan is called the setup. So then in our minds we're like, wait a minute, I've heard it once, I've heard it twice, and every time we hear it we go, first time I was like, oh, that was, okay. Second time, and we start that, it's that sense of internal, this is going to, I see it, it's going to be funny. But it's the third time that gives you the laugh, is the payoff. And that's what you're looking for. When we make that discovery that, oh, this situation truly is funny. It has humor. It's levity. Okay? But there's a plant, setup, and the payoff. And in those people doing HIs, today I need the instructors to ask you, well, there's only one, right? It's just, oh, well, Isaiah, today I expect a Goffin to ask you where the plant is. Where's the the interpreter, the actor comes in. Okay? Because if you've done the plan and the setup correctly, when it comes to the payoff, guess what? You don't have to say a single thing. When we talked about master gestures the other day, that every character in an HI should have a master gesture. So if every time we get to this pop, or pop or clip, as they call it on the East Coast, every time I get back to this character, and you know that it's, the Russian mob leader. So I've done my plant. You disgust me. Okay? So that's the first time. You're like, oh, that was funny. Okay? Script goes on, goes on, goes on. Russian mob leader the next time, his cat dies. You disgust me. If you've done your work correctly, guess what? The third time in the payoff, you don't have to say a single thing. And we already know, you disgust me. And we fill that in. And that's one of the things that makes humor itself. The whole sense of noise and sounding like you've got asthma, we need to stop that. Okay? And I'm going to talk to the coach in the back room for just a second. Y'all can hear. One of the things, and the reason that HI has gotten to the point where it is because coaches don't go in and judge those rounds anymore. And it's Friday night, it's a Saturday, we've got all these other things to do, and I get it. I so get it. But if we don't regulate the event as coaches, we are allowing kids then to do some of the sexually inappropriate things that they're doing. I don't want to see a 16-year-old, a 17-year-old, young student do some of the things they do. In the national round this year, and everyone's like, oh my God, and the kid's like, that was hysterical. Every person I knew over the age of 30. In one of the pieces, Milk Lemonade, a character has relations with a chicken. And I mean, the audience just died. They're like, oh, that's the funniest thing. I'm like, no, it's not. And judges that have the ballots in their hands, it puts us in a very weird situation. You think about somebody that's a grandmother, and she's watching a young man who she's got a grandson that age. She didn't want to see that. Well, it was so bad. Like, I can't even find the humor in it. It was just...
It was a national?
Yes. National finalist. You'll see it on the DVD this year. When the DVD comes out, Milk Lemonade. Check it out. I was disgusted by that performance. I truly was. I was like, oh. Yes, sir.
That's the one thing that I have noticed when we started judging again. 32 years of coaching, then retire, take 3.5 years off and don't do anything, and then go back and average judging 8 interp rounds a weekend all year. And and you start seeing these things that you've heard people complaining about. And when you actually see them, you go, I'm older now, okay? Than I was in 1976, 77. But I judged a round in Houston this year, not just because it was Houston, but the kid dropped the F word 7 times in a poetry round. It made me uncomfortable. And I mentioned it. And the coach laughed about it. So anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Ooh, no, that's...
Just had to throw that out there.
Oh, see, okay. Push the button. All right. The other part about comedy that comes in threes. There's just 3 types of comedy. Okay? First, there's high comedy. And high comedy are things like Shakespeare. Very humorous writer, if we believe that Shakespeare wrote all those, but that's a different course, different subject, different camp. Okay? Seinfeld. For those of you that have ever seen an episode of Seinfeld, Seinfeld was high comedy. High comedy, definition. Humor that is intellectual and looks at the common element. Humor that is intellectual and looks at the common element. And it's character driven. And for the most part, that's where most HIs are written. Christopher Durang is middle comedy. It's because it's character driven. Okay? And I always make fun of it, a good DI, somebody's going to die. Somebody will have cancer. Somebody will get beat up by their husband. Okay? And I'm not laughing at, that sounded real bad. But it's like that's going to happen in the DI round. Okay? The thing with HIs in comedy is not just that somebody has cancer, but their dog dies. The piece of mail that they're waiting for doesn't come, gets burned up in a fire, and you can't find your shoe. Okay? And that really does happen to people. It's like bad situations occur, but then it expands and it unfolds. Okay? Dear friend of mine, her dog died, and it was traumatic, because the dog was her best friend. I mean, literally. Her and the dog were best friends. Okay? But as she... But as she was taking the dog to the vet, to have it, buried or whatever they do with dead animals, she dropped she dropped the dead dog. Okay? Now, it's sad, and I feel bad. That was her best friend. I mean, that dog, her best friend. That was like her child. But as she was carrying the dog,
That's a play.
she tripped and the dog fell, just sprawled out the yard. Okay? And that's, it's basically middle comedy. Those things happen to us. And it's based on what happens to someone's existence in their lives. So it's character driven. Okay? Things like The Office. Very great example of what middle comedy is. The show The Science Nerds. Big Bang Theory. Wonderful example of middle comedy. Okay? It looks at the lives of the individual and then exploits them. It looks at the lives of the individual and then exploits them. Okay? Third type of comedy, third type of humor, is low comedy. The Hangover, Borat. It's the type of comedy that we know exists, and it's to the point of it's degrading. And a good HI should have a small bit of low comedy. Okay? There are times that things just happen. One of the gentlemen who's just in the final round, he started a scene, and a minister and a nun were having relations. Okay? And it's like, that's not fun. It's not funny. But it kind of was humorous. Okay? And there is a bit of low comedy in every HI. But what's happened is we get it out of balance. Playwrights who've written these wonderful plays, Don Zolitis, that's debatable. Some people say his plays are great, some people say they're horrible, regardless. But we have these playwrights that are writing these wonderfully character-driven stories about somebody's life just gone bad, gone crazy. Or instead of talking about, in our culture, the sense of sexual orientation or gender equity, we replace it with something like being left-handed. Okay? Which is very middle comedy, because there's those common experiences. We all have been either been made fun of because of our height, our weight, our color, our social status. So by replacing this entity, left-handedness, you can sort of feel like everything else. Being Latino, being overweight, being African American. And so that's a common experience that we have. And so it works between middle and high comedy. And it's up to you, the performer, to figure out how and which type of comedy it is. Okay? Because what makes removing the glove, when I use Isaiah's piece, what makes Isaiah's piece humorous is that literally you just sit there and go, this could be anything. How many times have your parents said, no, you can't hang out with, Johnny because, Johnny is different. And you always want to go, Okay? So if we look at what we do as a culture, as human beings, we all have these common experiences. Okay? There's a sense of, and please write this word down, universality. And this is for both. This is for HI, DI, duo, duet, prose, poetry. Okay? Okay? Yes, universality. Meaning applying to everyone. It's very universal. Okay? I will never be, in my lifetime, a Latino woman. It just won't happen. It just won't happen. So how can I sit in the back of a room as a judge or as an audience member? How can I then enjoy that performance? Well, let's see. If it's a Latino woman talking about being a mother and raising her child, well, let's see. I've been a child. I've had a mother. Oh, common denominators. How can I sit in the back of a room and relate to a woman that allows her husband to beat up on her? Well, let's see. I know what it feels like at some point in my existence, because of who I am, to feel belittled. So I get that. And one of the things that you, as performers, as actors, let's look at, it goes back to that, what do you want your audience to know, think, or feel? Sometimes add a fourth in there. How universal is my story? When we look for literature once we leave camp. And there are pieces out there that are just weird. They're just too weird. And they don't do well in this activity. But somebody goes, oh, I get it. And I know I'm going on a limb here and it's on video, but the national duo champions, I didn't get it. I just didn't get it. Was it a beautiful performance? Oh, it was pretty. Their blocking was off the chain. From that perspective, I'm like, oh, I get it. I didn't get what the story is. I can watch it today and still go, I still don't get it. It wasn't universal. But it was pretty. I'll admit that their blocking was like some of the best blocking I've ever seen in my existence. Like, whoa, whoa. It was fierce performance. But what was the story? And we've got to get away from looking pretty. We've got to get away from this sense of this facade performances. Be real. Be vulnerable. Okay? It's like somebody's oratory in this room says, what are you fearing? Nothing's going to bad happen to you. If in your mind you get a 6 on a ballot, if that's the worst thing that's happened to you, you better think about then what's good to you. Okay? If that's the worst thing that happened. Oh, I got a 6 on my ballot. Okay. But you still have shelter, parents that love you, food, clothing, the basic necessities of life. So what is there to fear? Any questions? Any questions? Let's see, now, y'all asked the boys questions yesterday. Questions?
They did, I know.
Yes, ma'am.
So plant setup and payoff.
Payoff.
Is that going to happen numerous times throughout an HI, or is that kind of one, are you looking for one big payoff?
In a well-cut HI, your major characters, not your minor, but your major characters, at some point, this should happen to all of your major characters. Minor characters, you just don't have enough time.
Okay. But you want at least one or more than one? Will some characters have more than one?
Depending on, yes, depending on literally how well the piece is cut. But the more times you do this in an HI, the more the audience feels as though they're a part of the performance. Because then there's this inside joke that the script and the audience are sharing. Because we don't have to even do words. So just when that character pops in that pop and does the, it's like, oh, inside joke between me and them. Even though they forget it may be an audience of 3,000, but they feel it's so personal, and so the joke is between that character and that individual audience member. So the more times that you can put that into a good HI cutting and take out all the bunch of sounds and inker and all that foolishness. I said inker. Because right now the children are more interested in a sound effect show than they are telling a story. You know, it's about what weird sound can you make? You know, what obscene gesture can you do? Tell a story. It's the same thing. Great
And is
question.
it always the same play of repeating something, or is there a different way to do a plant setup payoff besides it just being the repeated gesture and?
It can be the situation. It can be building of a scenario or building emotionally of a situation. So the first time, it may be like, I hate tomatoes. No, I really hate tomatoes. And then the third time. Okay? So it can be situational based or text based. But for the most part, your better comedic writers will do it both ways. And they allow the actor, interpreter, performer to then use their own sense of imagination. And I will say this, I hope nobody gets offended. To do HI to me takes intelligence. To me, it's one of the most intelligent events that we offer in Interp. And it saddens me that we have bastardized it to its lowest common denominator.
Because it's hard to do Shepard.
And it is. It's pretend to the ultimate. Because, you know, you've got to have a body posture for every single character. And do we get into the land of stereotypes? Yes. Because visually, we want it to be easier. You know, that's why we do a smoker with a raspy voice. You know, that's why the black girl character has become just in almost every HI you see now, because it is highly identifiable. When you pat that weave, you get to laugh. People are like, oh, that's Shaquan, I know Shaquan. It's based on that universality. Or the flavor of love. Okay, there's more weave on that show than a hoop man. If there was a fire, all their hair would just burn up because it's all fake. Okay? But we watched those shows, and y'all know y'all be watching Flavor of Love. It was like, I watched that show. Thank you. Come clean. Okay? So when that character just, literally, just pats that weave, it's like, uh-oh, there's a weave pat. What's going to happen? See? Okay, everybody weave pat just real quick. Y'all know how to weave pat.
Why don't you chew the gum when you do it?
That is sad, but those are common experiences that we find humorous. Okay? Okay. Any other questions? All right. It is 9:30. It's time to start work sessions. Ladies and gentlemen,